Welcome to Chris and Jen in the Morning.
Where it's always morning somewhere. I'm Chris.
And I'm Jen.
And welcome to today's episode.
We are super excited to have you with us today. Today, what are we talking about, Chris?
Well, we're going to do some reflection on a past episode that we did called Feel Fully, Act Wisely.
That was a good one.
We're going to share some personal stuff and then I think give people a little bit of insight into like the type of personal conversations you and I have. But before we dive into that,
it's going to get dingy.
It's going to get interesting, folks.
Dingy. Really duality of feelings, I think we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
Like we're complex beings, right?
I'm very complex.
I mean, I didn't say it.
But I did. But let's start with gratitude like we always do. So I'll kick us off if you're okay with that.
Yeah, go for it.
I was invited to, some friends of ours are getting married. We were invited to the bridal shower. I know her from a previous job we worked at. And I went out, was part of the event. It was actually yesterday. And just the group of people, don't know a whole lot of people that were going to be there. I've met them at a couple of different events. It was like really being around people that I didn't really know. Had the opportunity to meet some new people and really getting to connect with one another, hear each other's stories, interests. It was just all fun to kind of learn new people, be accepted into their, space. I was at a table with like 8 other people. Then on my way back, I was coming into the city. This was out in New Jersey. A couple of them were also coming into the city. We all like split a car to come back. And I was like, oh, yes, I don't have to take public transportation the entire way. It was magical. It was a lot of fun. It was fun to celebrate her. It was White Lotus theme. I don't wear a whole lot of white. So this was one of the options that I was going to wear.
Love it. I love it.
But I went with the other one, and we can throw up a picture, but it has like dark blue and light blue palm trees. This is more of like a floral print. And so I felt like it was a little more like adapted for it was all like the theme was all White Lotus party. And it was fun because like from a theme perspective, like it kind of gives you something to work off of. They also integrated it into kind of some of the prizes they gave away. It was a whole lot of fun.
I don't know that I know people throwing themed parties, except for those murder parties that I go to.
That's a huge themed party.
Yeah, but other than that, I've never been to a themed party that I can think of.
Oh, that's interesting. I have been.
You're just so classy.
Well, I get invited places.
Yeah.
But so we'll throw up a picture. But if you see, there's like I'm wearing a necklace in the photo. Shout out to my friend Joe who let me borrow a little something sparkly because
Joe
I showed.
Always has great sparkle.
Sure does.
He does.
He loves a good sparkle moment. So let me borrow one. I, of course, was just terrified the entire time that it was going to fall off. I wasn't going to notice it, like whatever. So it brought me joy, but it also brought me a little stress.
Taping it to yourself, please.
But I will just having that opportunity, like it just was like fun to engage with people in a different way. And, it was a fun night. It was a good time.
So Cartier, if you're looking for models, Chris is ready. It's trained up.
I'm getting invited to all of the IT parties.
Just want to take a moment for my gratitude moment to say how grateful I am that while I was in New York City with you and Frank and Ollie, of course, we got to go on a little nature walk. Up through Central Park, and all of the birds just came out to sing and shine, and most of them did sign the waiver, so I got some great photos. And also getting to sort of Frank snuck us into this bird watching group, and they were talking about all these birds with very specific names, and I was like, yep, I have no idea what you're talking about. But that was super cool. But to get to see the birds in the park with Frank, who actually is a aficionado. I don't know what other title you would use.
He loves birds.
He does. Raises birds. He's a bird expert. So that was really interesting to get to be like, what is this? What is this, Frank? I think he knows all the answers about all the birds, and he knows more of them than most people would. And it wasn't just the birds, even the pigeons. I know people are like, oh, pigeons, but I just think pigeons are beautiful. They have all these different patterns and so much personality.
Yeah, you actually shared a story with us about pigeons and like kind of the like how they got so like fanned out across the country and how
Did
they're
I?
actually I'm next to pop. Yes, it was for sure you.
Oh,
I'm beginning
well,
to think you didn't read the story, you just looked at the pictures.
did I like text it to you?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't remember that.
Anyways, point of the story is Jen is a fan of the pigeons.
I had a great time. Even just the trees and the architecture. I love a good architecture tour. And of course, New York brings a lot of that.
Yeah.
But we spent, I don't know, no concept of time. What did we spend? An hour walking
Oh, easily.
through the park and then down to the museum. And it was just, I just had the most magical time. And to get to wander with you guys and look at everything with you both. And it was just, I remember there was somebody who stopped by as I was taking a picture of the tree with the sunlight
Oh,
coming
yeah.
through. And she was like, "Is there like wildlife up there asking you?" And you're like, "Nah, she's just taking a picture of the tree."
Taking a picture of the tree.
It was beautiful.
But several people stopped by. So after you like turned back around, I was like, there wasn't anything up there, right? Like I just like kept people moving.
What's
She's
she
like, no,
looking at?
I mean, it's basically what it was. Like,
Light in the trees. It was beautiful.
yeah,
There's some pretty photos I'll share.
yep. You had lots of micro joys on that little nature walk.
I
So,
did. And so I'm just super grateful for the ability. Like, for one, I know that not everyone wanted to walk down to the museum. So I'm really grateful that y'all indulged me and that we could walk on a really lovely day in the
yeah,
city down along the park and down the street. And just to, like, it wouldn't have been as fun if I was doing that by myself.
yeah,
So to get to like experience the wonder and the charm of all of that with you guys was just really special.
yeah. Which kind of like leads into kind of the story or what we want to talk about today, the duality of feelings and kind of how we ended up with this conversation because it was a real life processing of feelings that I went through. I included you on that journey. Then you were here. We continued the conversation about it. It's kind of snowballed. And I just thought it would be interesting because I'm sure a lot of people are kind of have felt this or experienced this idea of like duality in feelings. I guess like to set it up, the week of September 7th here, I mean, around the world, things are just like intense right now. But here in the United States, that week was like just extra, a little bit more heightened than usual. There were some points in the week where I was in all my feelings. Like I was feeling a lot of different things, a lot of different times. I remember I had to go into the office actually on September 11th, which here in the city, there's just like a different vibe of the city on that date. But I remember you and I were texting and I think you had asked me like how I was doing, or maybe even I just texted you because I felt like I just needed to express how I was feeling to somebody. I had said, I'm just feeling all of the feelings right now. I'm not happy about all my feelings. I know that like feelings are there. I just randomly text you. I have no idea what you had going on in the day. Sorry, you got to catch those.
I mean, how many times do I do that to you? Come on.
Well, and I think that's what like we talk in our episode around feel fully, act wisely, like having those
Mm.
trusted people that you can express feelings to and can help you processing those feelings. You offered me some great advice. Do you want to share what that was or
Yeah, well, I certainly, through these podcasts, not only have we been learning about podcasting in general and getting comfortable with being on camera and peeling back our polish layers
yeah.
to have a real, candid, authentic conversation in front of who knows who
Right.
can see it. Part of the learning has just been about the content that we have talked about. And Chris and I have been chasing joy and happiness and peace and excitement in life and trying to figure out as we hit those middle years how we're going to get the most out of this life and not just go into autopilot and whittle the years away. One of the episodes that we had done was about feeling fully and acting wisely. I was thinking as you were texting me about this, all these feelings that you had, I immediately called back into mind the episode that we did on Feel, Pause, Plan, Act. I don't remember exactly what I said. I know you remember better than I do. I think I said something to the effect of like, all right, well, feelings are, and they are, feelings are signals. They're not your enemy. So you're
Right.
feeling all these things, you're wrapped up in them. What are they trying to communicate to you? Maybe I know you're in the office, but maybe you need to take a minute, like find a place where you can go and like process these feelings, maybe do a little bit of a journal. And I think what you have to know about Chris is that Chris is very even keel. He's very like reliable. He's somebody that you can always call to lean on or count on. He's incredibly pragmatic. He is emotionally connected while also being really stable. And so for Chris to be saying to me, like, I'm just really in my feelings was not something that was the norm.
Yeah.
And so I was just thinking, okay, like maybe your body is trying to tell you something, or your brain or your something is trying to tell you something. And so just go feel your feelings, don't ignore them because that's not going to go well for you.
Right.
And find a minute to process those because we're both expressives before you just get wrapped up in everything that's going on for the day. Because while it was just text, what I did know is that this was not like characteristic Chris. So you were definitely in a place. And I think that's the advice I gave you, right?
Yeah, it was. You definitely, well, you offered like, hey, do you want to talk? And I was like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm in the office.
I'm
I
in the
can't
office,
really.
can't really talk.
And so you did. You had encouraged me to do what I need to process those feelings, whether it's like writing them down, whether it's talking about them, like, just make sure that you are honoring your feelings and processing them because, feelings are signals, not enemies. So,
Sometimes I want to kind of smack myself for saying that's when you know I really need to hear it the most.
right. So, and as part of my job is I do like writing for like communicate corporate communications. And so I was already like writing stuff about it. And so I think part of me was like, well, I am writing it. And then what I realized is that those
You
aren't
were writing what
necessarily
you're supposed to be saying
correct. So they weren't
cognitive.
necessarily my feelings. And so whenever I had that aha and whenever I was finally like able to shift from like I need to get stuff done into like this like reflective state, I had just opened a Word document and just started like throwing stuff into it. And like there were three main buckets that I was having like feelings around. And so I just started like capturing those and not really more of a stream of consciousness versus like trying to create anything with it. It was just I was trying to process. And so in as the day went on, like I didn't save it or anything. It was just like an open doc on my computer. So then I come home. I remember like we texted, you asked how the rest of the day was, things like that. Kind of like just triggered me to go back to that document. As I was looking at it, I was like, wow, there's just a lot here. I just, what would happen if I threw this into one of the AI tools to see like what could be created based on it. I did. I threw it in and it's interesting. I had never really thought of AI as being something that could help me like better understand what I was feeling and like not change my words in such of a way that like it was changing how I felt about it, but it just made me think of it through a different lens, I guess. And like, oh yeah, I guess that really was how I was feeling.
So you and I are both expressives and we process things by speaking them, by hearing them, by having somebody to talk with. But I
Yeah.
also think there was a lot going on for you and you weren't really in that place where you knew what you thought and you didn't know if you wanted to share all those feelings. Having something that wasn't going to judge you for what you were saying
Yeah.
to kind of have that conversation with gives you the chance to kind of hear what you're saying reflected back at you.
Yeah.
Sometimes using words that are better than the ones that we can think of in the moment.
Exactly. That's what it brought up. I think in many of the ways like that it positioned them, I was just like, wow, I feel that's exactly how I was feeling in
I
that
feel
moment.
so
I feel
heard right now.
exactly. When you were here, I actually shared with you what ChatGPT had helped me create.
You're in the city, gorgeous city views, but you're a little bit away from the city, so you actually have gorgeous city views. And you'd been up to the rooftop on the 4th of July only?
Correct.
And I'm like, do you even have a rooftop? I've been here how many times? You've lived there how many years? Like years, years. And so I'm like, let's go up to the rooftop. And you're like, oh, you have to ask permission. And I'm like, says who?
Jen's like, let's just go open the door, even though it says an alarm will sound. Let's
Me
do
too.
it.
Hey, I don't know. You did it on the 4th of July, but you did ask permission and we got permission. We went up to the rooftop and we watched this beautiful sunset,
Yeah.
which was just an everyday sunset, I'm sure, set over the city. It was just this, we're the only two people up there. It's a little quiet place in the middle of the chaotic city of New
Yeah.
York City, up on the roof where no one else is, no one can hear us, and yet there's so much space all around us. And it's as if the entire city is at your fingertips.
Yeah. It was
Right?
gorgeous. It was the lights, the like the temperature, just everything about it was just
We
such
had our glass of wine
wine. Yep, we sure did.
and we had great company, great
Yes.
conversation, and you shared with me how ChatGPT organized your thoughts and feelings.
Yes.
And I was just like, Chris, that's so entirely relatable. Like, so beautifully said. And
Go
so
ChatGPT.
entirely, but like they're your thoughts, right?
Correct.
Like
Yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah.
so entirely relatable. And I think you were feeling, I don't know, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I gathered that you were feeling like really conflicted.
Yeah, exactly.
And I was just like, how many people can relate to that? Like so many people. That's so relatable.
Well, and that's exactly kind of where the not kind of, it's exactly where the conversation went. And you helped like even bring more like a stronger understanding of kind of what I was feeling. So you did say you were like, well, those are conflicting feelings, but like you can feel conflicting feelings at the same time, and many people do experience that. You talked about the duality of feelings and also like a little bit of shame, like, and that was like something that I did actually write in the original text, is that I felt ashamed of some of the feelings that I was having. And just the way that it kind of positioned it, like it helped me, the way that it rewrote it shifted it not into a thing that like you should be ashamed of, but feeling a sense of shame based on the that it's evoked. Like feelings are evoked within us. We cannot control them. And then whenever you kind of brought in those layers of duality of the feelings, it just like really it helped me feel as if I wasn't this horrible human being for having these thoughts
Or
and
like broken
feelings, and
or
right,
yeah.
exactly. And
Well,
you had also shared that those were things that you were hearing and seeing
yeah,
also within your your world, which that definitely
it's like
helps make you
validating. I'm
feel
not
not alone.
alone. Yeah. We often do well, I mean, I'm a fan of Brene Brown's work. Um, it would be such a dream of mine to get to actually like study with her. Um, though I feel completely unworthy of that. Well, maybe that's something I should think about. But, she talks about how like shame is so like we think that we are the only ones that feel what we're feeling. And when you keep things private, that's when shame really gets to take control. And not sharing your shame with everyone, but that if you have those few trusted people that you can share that with, it helps to kind of take the power away from the
Yeah,
shame that we feel, because you realize that really, while we're all special snowflakes, we're not that unique.
right.
If we're being
We all have,
honest.
it's the human experience,
Yeah.
right? Like at the end of the day, we are all human.
We're really complex. I think that what's interesting is we have this like impulse to categorize and judge, and whether that's other people or ourselves, we do it all the time
Correct.
subconsciously. So if you think you're not judging, I would just challenge you to say, are you really not judging, or are you just not aware of
Right.
it? And maybe I'm wrong. I'm always open to that possibility because it's probably often true. I think we are our harshest critics sometimes.
Yeah.
And so it's really easy for shame to set in and saying, oh, you're the only one that feels this way, and to start judging you for how you feel. But feelings are signals, right? They really are. And I learned that from the research that you and I did before we
Right.
did that podcast, which has really been something that has helped me process how I feel better. I'm pretty disconnected from my feelings a lot of the time, and paying attention and listening to how I'm feeling and letting that inform me of what's going on is has been really helpful. I have also talked to you about how I constantly feel like there's a term for it called an oxymoron, which you've very rightfully and graciously said, I don't think we're going to use that term.
No, no, no,
So
no.
instead, we say dichotomy,
Yes.
but how I am a complete dichotomy sometimes, in that, like, my impulse and my desire are two conflicting things. So
Yeah.
I want everyone to get along, and yet I am not the wilting flower that is not going to speak up and say what I think, even when it's controversial. As I don't want to ruffle people's feathers, it makes me really uncomfortable. But at the same time, I often do that just by living.
Just by showing up.
Yeah, I feel often like a dichotomy. So for me, I was like, well, of course you have multiple feelings on this. It's really complex. We're not like black and white.
Yeah. And I think the part that I was struggling with most is like, do try and manage my emotions in such a way that I can like compartmentalize. And I know that there's lots of studies that show there are benefits and there are not so great benefits to doing that. I personally have found it very helpful in my career to be able to do that. But for some reason that day it was just super hard. And I will say, like, I think as much as like we are on the socials and we try to connect with people, and like that's a great way to also stay in touch with one another, I also
It
think
can
it
be
can.
unhealthy.
Exactly. And so I think whenever I think back to that day and like what all happened throughout the day, it started with me on my commute. Instead of listening to music or a book, I think because like I had put my headphones in my bag and I was like, I'm not going to fish those out. And so I was like just scrolling on the socials and was just inundated with these messages that were just evoking all of this emotion. Um, and it was just by the time I got into the office, it was just like, my gosh.
I love that you shared that. I want to pause on that for a minute, because I think so many of us do this. When I'm at my best, I'm planning ahead for things that I know might be tough, and like putting on your the right outfit to handle the day. The language of my childhood would be putting on your suit of armor. But really, like, I think that that's the kind of thing where, this is a heavy day in the country. That a lot of feelings are out there, and feelings are signals, not enemies. Feelings are not your enemy, but it's heavy sometimes.
Yeah.
And so, like, that would be a great day to start your day with some affirmations. I will also say, I'll acknowledge that I'm not the best about thinking those things through. My partner in life and husband is really good at, like, zooming out and seeing all of those pieces and like kind of seeing those things. I'm not always the best at like going. So he's like to me afterwards, like, duh. And I'm like, oh, I didn't really think that one through. It just kind of happened to me. And then now I see hindsight is 2020.
It's true.
But if we kind of pause to be a little more planful, when you have big things happening, whether, in culture, in society, or just in your life,
Yeah.
those are great days to spend preparing yourself to be at your best. And you often do that through music and, you know, other things. You didn't have that to rely on.
Right. I mean, I did, but I think to your point about like being mindful and planning for it, like I should have just fished my headphones out of my bag. Like it's all the headphones, but no, I'm just kidding. But it is like what I do think that's so true is like being just mindful, because there are, milestones. There are things that we know about. There are things that we don't know about, and just like being prepared and trying to set yourself up for success for the day.
I mean, it's so obvious that I would want to be prepared for my feelings as opposed to be at the mercy of them. Like, such a Jen thing to say because I prefer to be in the cognitive. I'm more comfortable in
Yeah.
the cognitive space than I am in that. Not that I'm not a, I definitely feel things very big, but I'm much more comfortable in that cognitive. How do I think versus how do I feel? And, so obviously I would want to be prepared for managing my feelings.
Yeah.
But, because it's control, right?
You want control? What?
Shock. It's a whole shock,
I
right?
know. I didn't see
But
that one coming.
regardless, even if you are someone who is totally comfortable, being all in your feeling space, I think we all want to be able to experience things as the best version of ourselves.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's easy to get, especially when like you're talking, that's such a big week. So many things happening. It can be overwhelming.
Yeah. And it was very overwhelming. And then as like the more that you and I talked about it, it just kind of like piqued my curiosity into this, like the duality of feelings, the, having strong, like what we would say are opposing feelings.
Yeah. Hot take.
Yes.
We hate what the internet had to say about that.
Well, so let's talk a little bit about that, because in preparation for this, we try to bring some learning aspects and you love neuroscience, so try to bring in some aspects of that. And as I was preparing to have the conversation, I was like, I don't even know what this is called. Surely there is a word for this. And so I put in Google like strong opposing feelings, and it comes back with this word ambivalence. And I'm like, well, no, that's not the right word. So I try Googling it a different way, and what comes back is ambivalence. So then I'm just like sitting here thinking, I'm not Googling right. Like what's wrong? Like it's not even like it wasn't even bringing up options for me. It
You didn't have
just
the
kept
right
bringing
Google
ambivalence. Yeah, it was my Google face that was off. So then when you and I started talking about it, and I told you like the word that it keeps bringing up to me is ambivalence, and you're like, no, that's not the right word. I'm like, okay, well then you
I was
Google it.
really bossy about it too.
Right. I think my point is we both had such strong feelings that like the word ambivalence, it was not what we were experiencing or what I was experiencing, what I was like communicating. And so then you went on
The
your
internet
Google
told me the
search.
same thing and I didn't like it. But I think cultural context, ambivalence is a word that you use to describe kind of like a laissez-faire, I don't care, I'm
Yeah.
ambivalent. Like if I was like, do you want Chinese or Italian food tonight? And I'm like, I really don't care. Either one is fine with me. I'm ambivalent.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of a $5 word for such a, $1 context, but you know, but that's what it means, right?
Yeah.
Like I don't care. And so I don't know. I think the internet's doing things wrong by calling that ambivalence. Then I read an article, of course, it's from medium.com, and anyone can write an article on medium.com. So if you want to write an article and you're looking for a space to do that, medium.com is a space for you. But I was like, well, first of all, anyone can write these articles. And second, I disagree. And third, I think they're overthinking this because they were like, if you really think about it, you can feel one way about one side of a problem and another way about another side of the problem. And I was like, but that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about like truly having conflicting feelings. And I just think the internet doesn't understand us.
Here's what I think. I think I appreciate the phrase conflicting feelings more because it's truly how I felt, where I feel like the phrase ambivalence is a little bit more flippant and a little bit more, I love how you say laissez-faire, because I do think like it was very like uh I just don't, that does not feel right to me. However, I will say like in the process of trying to understand why it kept giving me the phrase ambivalence, it did it it was it
Giving
provided
you the
examples.
technical
Correct.
definition,
It
like the
provided
Webster's dictionary definition, which is missing cultural context.
right. But I do think like whenever some of the examples that it gave were very much so, I think also like, okay, not necessarily things that I identify with, but like I could see the same, like how I was feeling in those moments, like
Okay, well, a
an
minute ago,
understanding.
when I said ChatGPT, yay, here's where I'm going to say ChatGPT, whoa, you kind of are missing the context. So naturally, what did I do? I have Googled neuroscience behind duality of emotion, because why wouldn't I want to
Of
understand the
course.
neuroscience behind it? Really, all of what we do is just driven by the science of our brains. I am more and more and more and more convinced by that, especially after going to the Natural History Museum. But I think you'll be happy to know that what I learned is that the neuroscience behind the duality of emotions involves two different evaluation systems within the brain. There's the atomic and the homeostasis driven system within the brain. There is one automatic homeostasis driven system. And then there is another that is reflective and cognitive based
Okay.
system. So you have your automatic sort of, this is my, I was like, those are two of the same, those mean the same thing. There's, you have your automatic, like your natural state, and then you have your like reflective, your cognitive state. And so the automatic evaluation system of the brain is fast. Obviously, it's automatic, right? It's the biological process that relies on the brain's homeostasis mechanisms and the immediate biological value judgments that we make. It leads to rapid emotional response, often without conscious recognition of the situation. So think of this as your chat GPT within your head. It is like, although probably while our brain does process thoughts faster than we ever thought, we learned that. Maybe not as fast as GPT, chat GPT, but it is like the without the context
Right.
part of your brain. And then you have the portions of your brain that start to light up when you're doing your reflective evaluation. That's that slower cognitive process that involves concepts and thinking and evaluative judgments. And it's when the brain compares mental representations to standards or criteria, enabling more of those complex emotional states. And so the fact that those two things could be at odds with each other actually makes total sense. That's
Right.
just neuroscience. So you have your amygdala and your insular cortex involved in your automatic sort of response of how do I feel about this? And then you have your anterior cingulate cortex and your ventromedial prefrontal cortex involved in the higher functioning of the brain. And so you have like these different portions of the brain that start computing and informing your feelings on matters. And that's how you can feel dichotomy of emotions about a
Yeah.
singular topic.
Yeah. And whenever I
Not,
think back, yes. And when I think back to like the cadence of events, right? I had strong feelings in a certain way, but I know that one, that's where my brain then kicks in is, well, we shouldn't have those types of feelings. It is the dichotomy of the two and understanding that both can be present. And I think where I was getting caught up in is the shame that I was having certain,
mm,
what I would say my reflect, or not my reflective, my like the quick acting ones feelings, that those were, I was ashamed of having those feelings, that my immediate reactions were a certain way, but then in
well,
my reflection
you
not
were like,
necessarily happy that that is the first, like that was the first emotion that would pop up for
yeah,
me.
we talk a lot about being kind to ourselves.
Look, we talk a lot about all of these things, and talking about it and practicing it are two very different
I've
things.
said multiple times, like people tell me, oh, be kind to yourself. And I'm like, okay, but what does that mean? Like, can you give me
Yeah.
a 10-step plan? Because I can execute a 10-step plan, but this ambiguous be kind to yourself
Yeah.
instruction is like, I don't understand what you mean. Because if I knew how to do it, I would already be doing it.
Yeah.
Um, but I think that being kind to yourself in part means that you allow yourself to have feelings and you separate the feelings and the thoughts that come in from your fully formed decisions and judgments and how you would take action. So you can be upset by something and also in an extreme way, and then also know that your principles that you hold to would never allow you
Right.
to take an extreme action that would harm somebody else based on that upsetness. I think that's where the duality of those things can exist, or you can be relieved that you feel like a harm has been removed while also being sad that that's at somebody else's misfortune,
Yeah.
and those things can both exist at the same time. And I think that's one of the things that I have learned through therapy is that one, we can think anything we want. It's what we choose to continue telling ourselves, and it's what we choose to take action on
Yeah.
that we need to hold ourselves accountable for.
Right.
So, one, yeah, while thoughts can enter your mind, those thoughts that you give credence to is a choice, and it's your choices that you need to be accountable for. It's not necessarily the thoughts that enter in that you need to hold yourself accountable for. Those are like the feelings that come, they're signals of your body telling you, hey, we have something to say. You need some reflection time and pass this through the other parts of your brain that provide that like ethical and moral processing system,
Yeah.
and then make choices that you then act on
Right.
based on the inputs and the moral processing system and your ethical constructs. And then that's what you need to be accountable to.
Yeah. So it was a lot. Like it was a lot that day or that day, that week. In the reflection of it, like it is making more sense. It is coming to a realization that, you can have conflicting feelings, and like that's just a fact. Like it is just a fact that how our brains work. So when I think back to like our episode around feel fully and act wisely, like I do think there's this, we talk about acknowledging those feelings in the moment. And I think part of this that maybe we didn't necessarily hit on in that episode is the fact that you can have those conflicting feelings, and just acknowledging that conflicting feelings are can exist, and you have to take the time to acknowledge them, and process why you're having them, and allow them, kind of like what you said, like to process through those other parts of your brain to really start to find the balance in what action you're going to take, what things you're going to say, um and then like taking that time to truly um pause before you're take really moving into that plan and act, because to your point, those are the places that once you start to say the things, act upon those plans, that's where the repercussions become a little bit more real.
Yeah. What's interesting is when big things happen that give big feelings,
Hmm.
your body often gets flooded with different hormones that, are produced from different portions of the brain. So, we talk a lot about like dopamine, for instance, right? And there are all kinds of different hormones that get created in different areas of the brain that are produced by different things that we experience or actions that we take. And when you're in the moment of a big feeling,
Hmm.
sometimes that means that your system is getting flooded with a hormone from one part of your brain. And so if you take action in that moment based on that one big feeling, what you're not doing is pausing to give that big feeling time to settle into the orchestra of emotions that your brain coordinates over time.
Yeah,
It's like
love that.
reacting to the violin solo without
Right.
listening to, the wind instruments come in and play their part yet. And, I think what you and I both know is that once we have perspective and we see the bigger picture, it often better informs the choices that we make so that we're happier with the outcome. And so, like, that's why I like the framework of the feel, pause, plan, act, because it accounts for when your brain is just dumping
Yeah.
this single hormone from one processing center within the brain. But like, we have multiple processing centers for a reason,
Right.
right? And so it gives you the time to go, so this is what I feel emotionally, super valid because it's what I'm feeling. But let me just run that through all of the rest of the processing centers of my brain and give that hormone time to settle down
Yep.
before I take action, so that I know that, this is a more balanced thought versus taking, we've all been there, action based on that one big emotion. And then this is what happens in parenting so often, regretting the decision that you made and having to like eat crow afterwards, because you just have to say, you know what? I reacted. I was all up in my reactions and
Yeah.
I apologize for that. And let me tell you how I wish that would have gone for me.
Yeah. So I think the thing that I am walking away with, and a big reason I wanted us to have this conversation, is that we did have the episode Feel Fully, Act Wisely, where we talk about that feel, pause, plan, act kind of action plan. And that, number one, it continues to resonate even to this day. And that it is totally possible to have those conflicting feelings that are moving in different directions.
Yeah, you're not like broken or weird or,
Right. Exactly. And that, again, having that trusted advisor that you can share those thoughts with, that you can express your true self with, is so important, and a true benefit. And so thank you for being that person for me in that moment of just like all up in the feelings, and then just rephrasing and echoing back those things that we have learned, but then also like going on this journey and being on the same page with me that ambivalence does not feel like it's the right word for what I was feeling.
The internet is wrong. Neuroscience proves it.
Very true. Very true.
Hashtag justified.
Well, as always, so appreciate everyone tuning in for this episode. No, it's a little bit different than recent, but we talk about wanting this to be a place like you're sitting down with a friend across the table enjoying coffee, a cocktail, whatever it may be. And like these are real conversations that we have.
Real. It's so real. And I'm sure that so many people, Chris, can relate to the experiences that we have, and just like we relate to each other and go, you know what? That's actually not so normal. Like I feel that way all the time. Or often enough anyways.
Right. Well, so thank you everyone for listening in. If you haven't already listened to the Feel, Pause, Act, Plan, Act episode, which again is called Feel Fully, Act Wisely,
we recommend it. It's been really helpful for us, both of us. So it's a great framework, even though I'm like, oh, framework, like, yes, that feels so formal. It's like a great tool in the toolkit that I have found just super helpful. Yeah.
So highly encourage you check out that's on YouTube and then on all of our podcasting platforms. And we want to hear from you. Like what helps you find that balance whenever you feel tugged in those two different directions, and how do you pay homage to yourself and your feelings? Because that is part of the process, is acknowledging it and then understanding that it's all just part of the process of processing.
Yeah. So let us know. You can let us know either the best way is to leave a comment in whatever platform that you are listening to us on. Leave a comment. We monitor those. So we would love to hear what you have to say. We'd also love to hear your thoughts and opinions on ambivalence in general. But we do feel pretty strongly about it.
So don't be ambivalent about ambivalence.
You can email us at chrisjeninthemorning@gmail.com. You can text us at 940-278-8129, or follow us on all of our social platforms. Chris, where can they find us?
We are on the Facebook. We are on YouTube, Instagram. You can find us on Reddit. Go out. Connect with us.
We're on TikTok. I don't know if Chris
TikTok,
is on
that's
TikTok.
Right.
We're
I
on
am
TikTok.
not. I'm not on the TikTok.
We're going to get Chris all up to speed on all these things.
Before we started doing this, I had a rule, 2 social media platforms.
I know.
Max,
I feel you on that.
We've definitely pushed my boundaries.
Me too. But we're trying to meet you all where you're at.
That's right.
Absolutely want to hear from you. So definitely let us know what you think. And until next time, be kind to one another and let's make it a great week.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.